The President, please be seated. The court is now in session. As already informed to the parties to the proceedings, today the Chamber would be hearing the testimonies of Mr. Nigon, the questions to be put by the co-prosecutor. Mrs. Saikovati, you are now instructed to report on the presence status of Mr. Ieng Sari. Saikovati, Mr. President, Mr. Ieng Sari is in his holding cell. He has waived his right to be present in the courtroom, and the waiver has already been given to the Chamber. The President, thank you. The Chamber has noted the request by Mr. Ieng Sari. He has asked that he be allowed to observe the proceedings from his holding cell, and he has waived his right to be present in the courtroom due to his health concern, that he cannot remain seated long hours in the courtroom. The Chamber notes that Mr. Ieng Sari has waived his right to be present in the courtroom, and he is permitted to observe the proceedings from his holding cell. Through the audio visual means, Mr. Ieng Sari can be assisted or can assist his counsels from his holding cell. Mr. Ieng Sari is now permitted to observe the proceedings from his holding cell for the whole day. AV booth officers are now instructed to ensure that the audio-visual link is connected to the holding cell so that he can observe the proceedings from there. Next, we would like to hand over to the prosecution to proceed with the questions they would wish to put to the witness. You may now proceed.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Your Honours, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all, and good morning to the witness. Just one point before we get going about the time distribution between the co-prosecutors and the civil parties. We intend to continue questioning the witness this morning up until lunchtime, and then this afternoon the civil parties will pick up the baton for the rest of the day. Mr. Witness, can I ask you for some clarification about what you said yesterday about the structure of Sector 15, which subsequently became 32. You said that Cheng An had been Deputy Secretary of the sector. Is it the same Cheng An who then became Minister in the government of Democratic Cambodia?
Response. Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honours, and the Court. With regard to this question, my response is, I do not understand that Cheng An became a minister.
I'd like to come back to the issues that we were looking at when we closed yesterday evening. A question about the various meetings that you attended in the cell or unit or sector, and in addition to those local meetings in the cell or sector 32, were there annual or biannual zone assemblies that were meant to bring together the party cadres?
Response. I do not remember everything, but normally there would be assemblies, the zone assemblies, that would be the regular ones. However, I do not recollect how often such assemblies were convened.
Where were the zone assemblies held? Was it always in the same place, or did the venue vary within the West Zone?
Response. I remember the one location very well, where the assemblies would be held. It was at Cham Ka Dong, as I already said yesterday.
Who attended the assemblies at zone level? Was it reserved for a certain kind of cadre, and if so, what kind?
Response. Normally, people from the commune branches would also be envisaged to take part in the assemblies.
All right. Does that mean that people from the communes participated in every level above that district, sector, and so on?
Response. Yes, it is correct.
How often did you personally attend one of those assemblies, as far as you can recall?
Response. I do not recall it very well. I attended an assembly called the Open Assembly.
Who was chairing the assemblies at zone level?
Response. Normally, people who would chair the assemblies were the secretaries of the zone.
Did the leaders of Democratic Cambodia ever come over from Phnom Penh to deliver speeches during these assemblies?
Response. As far as I remember, on one occasion there were senior people from the upper echelon, and at that time I saw Tan Nguyen Chia.
And apart from Tan Nguyen Chia, did you ever see or hear of the movement of other senior leaders to come to the West Zone to chair or preside over these meetings, to help the Zone Secretary with the presiding work?
Response: no, I never saw them.
Mr. Witness, can you remember which year you saw Nguyen Chia in the West Zone at an assembly of this kind?
Response: I don't think I remember this very well because it was more than 30 years ago, but I may guess that it could happen by late 1974. Or rather, I would like to correct, it could have been sometime in late 1975, but I'm not sure myself.
Could you tell us what sort of subjects were debated at the zone assemblies? What subjects were put forward by the zone secretaries or visiting leaders?
Response: the only thing I remember very clearly was that when the war was over, everyone joined hands to reinstall the economy and also to implement the self-reliant policy, the self-mastery policy, the things that I already mentioned yesterday.
How long did the assemblies last in the zone? Was it one day or several?
Response: the assembly was held for 3 days, if my memories serve me well.
Coming back to the subjects debated, did you ever hear reference at these assemblies of subjects connected with enemies of the nation, internal or external? Did you hear talk of traitors, for example, at these assemblies?
Response: I heard about the subject concerning the people who would obstruct the fight the course of a fight, but I could not be more specific than that.
Est-ce que vous avez
Did you ever hear Nunchia talking about people who were posing an obstacle to the struggle?
Response: personally, no, I didn't.
Monsieur le Président, il y a deux exemples.
Mr. President, there are 2 copies of the revolutionary flag in the file, which is a reference to a speech to cadres that was made in June 1976 and another in 1977. I don't want to show the first document, but it's revolutionary flag of June 76, reference E3/760 and D234.2.15. I would like to show a second document, which is another revolutionary flag dated August 1977, which has reference E3/193 and D189.2. There's just one title, in fact. It's just a speech by a representative of the party concerning a certain number of guidelines connected with construction, consolidation and development of the guiding party during the cadre assembly of the Western Zone on the 25th of July 1977. And with your leave, Your Honours, I would like to show the document to the witness and to put on the screen certain specific pages.
The President. Court officer is now instructed to bring the documents to the witness for examination, and the court assistants are now advised to put up the documents on the screen.
Je vais laisser Monsieur le témoin regarder.
I will give the witness a few moments to look at the contents of this copy of the revolutionary flag.
Monsieur le témoin, est-ce que vous auriez déjà vu cet exemplaire?
Mr. Witness, have you already seen this copy of the revolutionary flag, which specifically dwells on the West Zone? Can you tell us if you're familiar with the publication and indeed with its contents, which concerns that zone assembly that was held in July 1977?
Response: I have never seen the document because only portions of the content of this document would be extracted to further publicize.
Juste une autre question.
Mr. President, one more question if I can. Mr. Witness, are you familiar with this speech that was delivered in the West Zone?
The President, Counsel, you may now proceed. Counsel Ang Uddam. Mr. President, Your Honors, witness made it very clear that he has never seen the documents. Should we now follow the rules that have already been implemented? The President, thank you, Counsel. Court officer is now instructed to remove the document from the screen and take them from the witness.
When the zone assemblies took place, did you hear, in more specific terms than I was mentioning before, the members of the party who had come across from Phnom Penh, senior leaders I mean, talking about the fact that in the former Sector 15 there were a great many corrupted people, that there was nothing left but rotten, decomposing flesh, and that that flesh had finally been dealt with and removed. Did you hear about this during the West Zone Assembly, this kind of language?
Response. I have never heard anything as quoted in the speech you referred to, and I believe that it was the role of the upper echelon, and I haven't heard anything about this.
Mr. Witness, could you tell us if in the West Zone at a given point in time there was a wave of arrests, a purge among the cadres who belonged to the zone sectors and districts?
Response. I heard from people through gossip that, and as far as I remember, I already had left. I already moved to the ministry when that happened.
Could you tell us exactly when you left the West Zone to go to the ministry, which I assume is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. I left for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs perhaps during late 1977 and early 1978, and I had worked at the ministry very briefly, no more than 3 months indeed. And at that time the situation was very chaotic because we was still in the war. The new war was erupted, and the forces had been gathered and people had no, people did not dare ask anybody about anything.
In Region 32, when you were still there, were there ever people who disappeared from that region, from that sector? Did you notice anything yourself?
Response. I did not know about the disappeared people, but what I had heard was that people were removed in order to assume other positions, but as to where they were taken to, it was not within my knowledge, but I only heard that those people were removed in order to assume other positions.
Et ces personnes,
And did you ever see those people who were removed again later on?
Response. No, I didn't. I did not see them. And as I said earlier, the situation was chaotic, so we did not know who went where.
Within Sector 32, did you know a person called Sit who worked in the Udong region?
Response. No, I don't.
est-ce que vous connaissiez
Did you know a person called Keo who worked at Region 32? The person is called Keo, K-E-O.
I used to know him when we were in war, and he was in charge of providing food supply.
Est-ce que vous savez ce qui
Do you know what happened to him afterwards? In 1977, he was among the people that you knew were transferred from one post to another. Do you know what happened to him?
Response. That I did not know, because it was the decision of the upper authority.
Est-ce que vous connaissiez
Do you know a person called Sim, S-I-M, who worked in the region of Penyai Pui?
That I did not know either.
Je voudrais juste mentionner à l'attention
I wish to indicate to the Chamber, and for the purposes of maintaining the record, all of these names are referenced in a report that is numbered D369/12.1. All of these individuals' names appear as having been individuals who were transferred to S21 in May 1977.
Monsieur le témoin, lorsque vous étiez
Mr. Witness, when you were working in Region 32, were any accusations leveled at you? Did anyone cast any suspicions on you, even if they were unfair?
The response. Well, concerning that question, I myself could not conclude that the upper echelon would suspect or had any doubt against me, but it was my own assumption or speculation of what they were thinking.
Vous avez dit tout à l'heure que vous avez...
Just now, you said that you were transferred to the MFA either at the end of 1977 or at the beginning of 1978. Who sent you from the West Zone to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. The authority to remove anyone from one place to another was vested with the zone committee.
Est-ce que le comité...
Did the zone committee tell you why you were being transferred to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Yesterday you stated that it was most likely because you were literate, but were you given a rationale as to why you were being seconded?
The rationale behind was that the fundamental rationale was that I was literate. I could read and write. I am conversant with numbers, so that I was transferred to this ministry because they thought that I would be more productive working in this industry utilizing my skills.
Very well. You're telling us that your transfer to the MFA had absolutely nothing to do with the wave of arrests and purges that were occurring in the West Zone. Is this correct?
Response. I stated clearly in my statement earlier, but I would like to reiterate it. I did not know any other reasons. The upper echelon did not specify the reason for my removal, but the only reason they gave to me was that I was literate, I could read and write.
Monsieur le Président, avec votre...
Mr. President, with your leave, I wish to quote a passage from document that makes explicit reference to the witness. This document has already been admitted by your honors. It is E3/89. It's also classified under IS 20.6. This is an interview of Yang Seri conducted by Steve Hayter on the 17th of April 1996. Allow me to read a passage that can be found on the Khmer ERN page 00062471-272. In English, the ERNs are 00417313-215. And the French ERN is 00332695. And the following 2 pages.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning,
The President, Counsel Michael Canavas, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honors, and good morning to everyone in and around the courtroom. Normally, I would not be objecting if we were, under normal circumstances, admitting evidence and using evidence with witnesses as we would be doing in an adversarial proceeding. In these proceedings before the ECCC, the trial chamber has taken a number of decisions, some which I don't particularly agree with, but nonetheless, these are decisions that have been taken concerning the use of statements by others who haven't appeared in court in order to confront witnesses. I think this is a new development. We haven't been confronted with this sort of a situation. The prosecution began by asking leave. Leave was not actually granted. He then proceeded to go off and was about to read the passage. So at this stage, I would respectfully request that the trial chamber at least convene and decide whether under these circumstances this sort of a statement can be used in order to confront witnesses. As I've indicated, we haven't been confronted with this situation before. If the answer is yes, fine, then I take it that whenever any witness comes up to testify, then we would be permitted to use statements where references are being made to that witness by others who may or may not be testifying before this tribunal. So I respectfully request a ruling before the prosecution proceeds. Thank you.
The President, the representative of the prosecution, you may proceed.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I believe in this particular situation, this is the first time we were confronting such a scenario. This passage concerns the witness. Statements made by the accused, Mr. Yang Sari, are also contained in this document, and this document has already been admitted, and I believe the witness should be given opportunity to react to this passage, which I intend to read aloud upon granting of your authorization, of course, so that we may have insight on the circumstances in which the witness joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I thank you, Your Honors.
The President. The objection by the Defense Counsel for Ieng Sary concerning the introduction of document E3 E3/89 is not sustained. The Chamber grants leave for the prosecution to introduce this document as the basis for his questioning. The President, Counsel Michael Canavas, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one point of clarification. I did not object. I asked for a ruling. And so I want the record to be very clear that I was not objecting, because then it gives the impression to the public and to counsel and to the record that somehow we have something to fear with this being used. I asked for a ruling, and I want to be very, very precise. Thank you.
The reasoning for this particular case was different from the ones we had so far, because this case was an interview with the accused Ieng Sary, and now Ieng Sary himself is attending the hearing from the holding cell downstairs, and when he is following this proceeding and he has anything to object or to confront this witness, then he is allowed to do so. The prosecution, you may continue.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Donc, je vais...
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I will now go ahead and read this passage, for which I've already indicated the references. Steve Heder asked the following question. And the document reads, Nikan, when was he inserted? The response of Ieng Sary is as follows and is as transcribed in the document. In 1978, early 1978, no, in late 1978. In late 1978. Yes, July 1977, when they accused him of all sorts of matters relating to him belonging to the CIA. They placed him as a relative of Son Sen, and they placed him in the foreign ministry. They had placed anyone who had been charged of being a member of the CIA or having any connection with anything. Those who had not yet acted, what do they call it? They call it evidence, and anyone who had not yet been sentenced, they placed them in the foreign ministry. Like Nat, they brought him to the foreign ministry, and they also brought Hawk to the foreign ministry. End of passage. And where was Nikon when he was in the field? The response of Ieng Sary is as follows. In the west, on the outskirts of the west, in Udong district. End of quote. Did Ieng Sary ever tell you the real reasons behind your transfer to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Or did your brother Son Sen talk to you about why you were sent to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs afterwards?
Response. As I told the court a bit earlier today, the only reason I got for the transfer to Ministry of Foreign Affairs was that the job that I was undertaking at that time was not compatible with my ability, and they were of the view that if I were transferred to Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I would be doing better. And when I was transferred to Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I was attached to the Department of Protocol. And my main task was to accompany visitors. And as for the allegation against me of being connected to CIA or any other agency, I did not know. And as I told the court yesterday, that there was a strict secrecy policy or principle over there. So normally we did not know the decision at the upper echelon. And up to date, I have not been aware of any other reasons. And I only learned from the prosecution just now that he introduced this document to me through the content he read out. That's what I would like to respond to this question.
Dans cet extrait,
And in that passage I've just read aloud, Ieng Sary is of the belief that you arrived at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1977. Earlier you mentioned late 1977 or early 1978. Do you agree with Ieng Sary in that you entered the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1978? Does that refresh your memory?
Response: I cannot recall it very well. I could only answer with my unclear memory of the event.
une fois que vous êtes arrivé au ministère,
And once you arrived at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, was it Ieng Sary who decided the role that you would play within the ministry?
Response: based on the structure of that ministry, the person who is on the top of the structure was the chairman of the ministry. So it was up to him to decide on my role. So I did not receive the appointment from Ieng Sary directly, but it was from my direct supervisor.
alors vous avez parlé du fait que vous aviez travaillé.
You talked about the fact that you worked within the protocol department, but what were your duties exactly?
Response: during my short period of attachment to the Department of Protocol was to accompany individual visitors. I was not responsible for accompanying delegations, overseas delegations, but I only accompany individual visitors. I accompanied them to visit Angkor Wat. And when I accompany those visitors, then other comrades also accompanied me. And it took us about a week or even longer because the road condition at that time was not that good. And other than that, I merely cleaned the house, tidy up the house for the guests to stay. So those were my main functions being with this protocol department. And in my free times, I would have plant the vegetable or so surrounding the ministry compound.
Were you the director of the protocol department within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
There was no formal appointment yet at that time.
Je voudrais, Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President, I wish to read another very short extract from the same document, E3/89, IS 20.6. In Khmer, the ERN begins at the start of page 00062472. In English, the passage begins at ERN 00417314. And in the French version, the passage begins at 00332695. I'll repeat for the record, the French ERN is on 00332695. Steve Hedder asks the following question, and I quote, "And when Nikan came to the ministry, what did you assign him to do? Receive visitors?" Response from Ying Sari, "No, to protocol. The director of protocol." Steve Hedder asks the following question, "Oh, the director of protocol." To which Ying Sari replies the following, "Ni Kan was above Sao Se, but Ni Kan was a much better administrator than Hong." And I believe that the last sentence is unintelligible on the French version, but the English reads very clearly. And I repeat, Ni Kan was above Sao Se, but Ni Kan was a much better administrator than Hong.
donc, je ne sais pas si je dois répéter parce qu'il me semble que la traduction est restée un peu en arrière. Donc, la dernière phrase en anglais. Of so say, but Nikon was a much better administrator than Hong. Alors, est-ce que vous êtes tout d'abord d'accord avec...
First and foremost, Mr. Witness, do you agree with Mr. Yang Sari in that you were appointed as the Director of Protocol within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs during the period that you worked there?
Response. For clarification on that matter, the director of the protocol department was someone else, but when I arrived, and then the director of that department went somewhere else, I did not know where he went to, so I was more acting like an acting director at that time, and my main responsibility was to accompany visitors. But again, the visitors themselves were received by other people who were responsible for receiving guests. And on the second part of your question, I don't agree with that because to me, I think it was unfair to say so because I don't think that I had any ability above the department committee or the committee of the ministry itself. That was not true.
Alors, vous avez dit qu'en...
You're saying that in your capacity as acting director of the protocol department, your job was to essentially to accompany visitors and traveling delegations. Was there anything else that you had to do within the ministry? And I'm not talking about planting vegetables, but I'm talking about duties that were in connection to children.
Response. With regard to children, when I had some free times, I would be teaching them some English.
Combien d'enfants travaillaient?
How many children were there in the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and what were they doing there?
Response. I don't remember how many, but in general, during the time of war, people would part their ways, and I don't know where everyone would go.
D'où venaient ces enfants?
Where did the children come from who were in the Foreign Ministry?
Response. These children came from various zones, but I have no further specific information about this.
Est-ce que certains de ces enfants travaillaient à l'accueil des invités?
Did some of these children work to receive guests or to help with accompanying delegations that were visiting the country?
Response. Children were not allowed to accompany guests. Only youth, male and female youth, would be allowed to do so.
Qui était votre supérieur immédiat?
Who was your immediate superior in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. My immediate supervisor was the chief of the department, and he was called Chiem.
Est-ce que vous connaissez?
Do you know the other names of this Chim?
Response. No, I don't.
Est-ce que vous connaissiez Jim déjà auparavant?
Did you know Chim before, during the 5-year war?
Response. I just got to know him very well when I started working at the ministry.
But had you seen him before, during the war?
Response. Mr. Jim was the upper echelon person, so as the person who worked at the base, I would never meet him.
Donc vous avez dit que
But you said that Jim was at the head of your unit. What unit are we talking about?
Response. The department that I was referring to here is the department within the ministry. I do not know any other departments you're referring to.
mais de quoi principalement Jim s'occupait-il?
What was Jim's main job in the ministry?
Response. What I saw and knew was that he was overly in charge of assigning the tasks to people in their department, and he was also in charge of foods to be delivered to the personnel of the department, and I know nothing other than this.
Est-ce qu'il y avait un lien quelconque entre
Was there any kind of link between the protocol service and the security side? For example, the security of guests.
Response. Through my observation, I did not see any linkages between the two. However, it's just my own observation because I would never know the actual situation concerning this.
qui était le chef immédiat de Jim?
Who was Jim's immediate superior?
Qui était l'échelon entre Yang Sari et Jim? Ou les échelons, s'il y en avait plusieurs.
Who occupied the level between Yang Sari and Jim, or the levels if there were several? Yang Sari was the minister, Jim was head of the service, and who occupied the hierarchical slot between the two of them?
Response. There were people in between, but I'm not sure who they were. As you indicated to me that in the interview Hong Sai were mentioned, but I know that there were Hong and Jim. Other people were those who were in the technical unit practically, and we would be assigned tasks by Mr. Jim.
Lorsque vous accomplissiez vos fonctions en tant que chef,
When you were working as head of protocol, did you always respect the instructions and authority of your hierarchical superiors?
Response. Yes, I did. We had to respect all the instructions rendered.
est-ce que Jim,
And what about Jim and Hong? Were they always obliged to abide by instructions coming from above, from the person at the top of the ministry, Yang Sari?
Excuse me, Mr. President. Is rather leading and does suggest the fact that it's not an evidence. Perhaps you can elicit more information to see whether the witness is competent to answer that question. But I do believe that he's trying to put words into the witness's mouth. And perhaps he's asking him to speculate. So he can go step by step on this one.
Je vais juste reformuler.
I'll reword the question. In the same way as you had to respect instructions coming from the superior level, did Chim, who was your superior, also have to proceed in the same fashion with his superiors?
Response. The hierarchy and orders of operation were like that. I was under Chim. I had to abide by Chim orders, and then he would also have to implement the orders from his superior, and we all had to be abided by the orders, and we were in the same situation.
Vous avez dit
A little earlier you said that Yang Sari was at the head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Do you know if he had other positions within the bodies governing Democratic Kampuchea?
From response. These affairs are far beyond my knowledge. I don't know.
Vous nous avez dit tout à l'heure.
Just now you told us that you weren't absolutely sure about the duties of Hong and Se, who were superior to Chim in the hierarchy. Do you know the jobs that were done by other people who were working in the ministry? What about Song Sekun, alias Kong?
Response. I know these people, but I don't know what they did, because they were assigned with specific tasks in specific section, so they would be doing their job, and I don't know.
Est-ce que vous avez
In the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, did you meet a French woman called Laurence Pic, alias Paul?
Response. I don't know this person, but I remember that there was a French woman working within the ministry, and I know that she got married to a Cambodian man by the name of Kung. That's all I know.
Est-ce que vous connaissez
Among these various colleagues, did you know Chun Prasit?
Response. Yes, I did. I knew this person through, in the course of my work, to receive guests, and he worked as an interpreter.
Did he often accompany foreign delegations on visits to the field?
Response. I did not see him accompanying people to the fields very often, because he only seen in the important events.
Est-ce que vous connaissez
Did you know Auk Sakun, alias Min?
Response. I know the person by the name of Kun, but I don't know his alias. Kun used to work as an interpreter as well. Whenever there were national and French visitors, he would be called to interpret.
Merci.
Thank you. Did you know Long Norin, alias Rit, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs?
Response. Yes, I do. I know the person by the name of Rit, but I don't know Long Norin. During the war and after the war, people would have different names.
Qui, au sein
In the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and according to what was heard on the radio, who was designated as Comrade Secretary for relations with Friends of Democratic Kampuchea throughout the world? Do you know who in the ministry was doing that particular job?
Response. No, I don't.
J'en viens maintenant à la période.
Let's just talk about your time in the ministry. You said you worked 3 months there in 1977. Do you confirm that response, or did you work longer than 3 months?
Response. It is just my estimation, because I had focused on working, and by that I may have forgotten the certain duration I worked there, and I would not be very precise when I said about that duration.
Est-ce que vous êtes resté au ministère des Affaires étrangères jusqu'à la
Did you stay in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs right up to the arrival of the Vietnamese? This is perhaps something that's easier to situate in the course of time.
Response. Yes, I remain attached to the ministry until the arrival of the Vietnamese, when we then fled to the west direction of Phnom Penh.
Donc j'en conclus.
Very well, Mr. Witness. If I conclude by adding up the number of months between January 1978 and January 1979 and the arrival of the Vietnamese, then it seems to me that that amounts to 12 months, perhaps a little more, perhaps a little less. Is that correct?
Response. I haven't had calculated this clearly, and I am not in the position to say that it would be 100% correct. It is more or less, or I haven't had in mind this calculation of the time I worked there.
Merci. Alors, on va maintenant.
Thank you very much. As head of protocol, let us discuss your role there with visiting delegations and guests. So, as head of protocol, during the time you were in the ministry, did you often have to go out to Pochentong Airport to receive foreign delegations, or to receive Democratic Kampuchea leaders who were coming back from trips abroad?
Response. With regard to my task to receive foreign guests or leaders, actually the tasks were divided into sections, and people would be in charge of different sections. On some important days, the respective important people who were in charge of the respective sections would be assigned to receive the important delegations.
Je voudrais peut-être vous rafraîchir la.
I might just refresh your memory. On file, we do have a FIBIS article which refers to a Democratic Kampuchea radio broadcast. It's an article referenced under E31361 and D262.40, dated 24th of April 1978. At this stage we only have an English ERN, which is 0016 88 63. This is a Radio Phnom Penh broadcast which talks about Leon Burstein from the US Marxist-Leninist Communist Party's arrival on the 22nd of April 1978, and the fact that he was received by the comrade head of protocol from the Foreign Affairs Ministry at the airport. Can you remember having welcomed or met Leon Burstein representing the Marxist-Leninist Communist Party of the United States?
Response. No, I don't. I don't remember this. There were several American visitors and I don't remember those names.
Si vous alliez
If, as I understand it, you didn't go regularly to the airport, then who did go from the ministry? Was it the minister himself, or were there others who went to welcome foreign delegations that were landing at Pochentong?
Response. The people who took turn to receive visitors were those people who were senior, who understood the world, who had a good knowledge of the world and could speak foreign languages. Person like me from the rural area would not be interested. And I remember the person named Kun or Auk Kun would be someone who would be assigned to receive the delegates. And Mr. Prasad was also often engaged in this receiving guest event, and again I was an ordinary person.
And what about Yang Sadi? Did he go several times to the airport to welcome high-ranking delegations?
Response. According to the hierarchy, if they were senior people, then senior individuals had to receive them. I don't recollect how many times Mr. Ieng Sari would be there to receive them.
En tant que chef du protocole,
As head of protocol, were you required to attend receptions and banquets and ceremonies, shows, film projections that were organized for foreign delegations or by foreign embassies in Phnom Penh? And if the answer is yes, could you quote a few examples for us?
Response. Could you repeat the question, because I couldn't catch it?
Yes, I just wanted to know if, when you were in charge of protocol, your duties included attending a certain number of events, such as banquets, receptions, ceremonies, shows, film projections, that were either organized for foreign delegations to attend or which were set up by foreign delegations visiting Cambodia, and more particularly in Phnom Penh.
Response. I used to only take people or usher people to any particular sessions. I would be there to arrange the seats before visitors came in. I had knowledge of arranging any banquet or film projections, and I cannot remember the details of these, but I believe that there were Chinese film projections at some old cinemas in Phnom Penh, where workers and staff from ministries were called to watch them, and I was assisting this. That's what I remember. The President interrupts. Thank you. It is now appropriate time for the morning adjournment. The Chamber will take a 20-minute adjournment. Court officer is now instructed to assist the witness and his duty counsel to have a proper place during the break and have the witness return to the courtroom by 10 to 11.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ